صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. گھر کو چھوڑا شاہ نے جنگل بسانے کے لیے، کربلا میں آئے تھے جنت میں جانے کے لیے. ظہر کو زینب سے جب ملنے گئے گھر میں حسین، کوئی جوڑی پانا تھا پردہ اٹھانے کے لیے. گھر کو چھوڑا شاہ نے. گھر سے جب بہر سفر سید عالم نکلے، سر جھکائے ہوئے بادیدہ پرنم نکلے. خیش و فرزان کمر باندھ کے باہم نکلے. رو کے فرمایا اس شہر سے اب ہم، رو کے فرمایا کہ اس شہر سے اب ہم رات سے گریہ زہرا کی صدا آتی ہے. دیکھے قسمت ہمیں کس دشت میں لے جا، دیکھے قسمت ہمیں کس دشت میں لے جاتی. رخ کیا شہ نے سوئے خبر شہنشاہ انام. بحر تسلیم جھکے متصلے باب سلام. اذن پڑھ کر جو گئے خبر کے نزدیک، امام عرض کی آیا ہے آج آخری رخصت کو غلام. یہ مکہ ہم سے اب اے شاہ زمن چھٹتا ہے. آج حضرت کے نواسے سے وطن چھٹتا ہے. چین سے سب ہے گھروں میں مجھے ملتا نہیں چین. سخت آفت میں ہے اب آپ کا یہ نور العین. ٹکڑے دل ہوتا ہے جب رو کے حرم کرتے ہیں یہ بین. ننھے بچوں کو بھلا لے کے کدھر جا اے حسین. شہر میں چین نہ جنگل میں اما ملتی ہے. دیکھیے خبر مسافر کو کہاں دیکھیے خبر مسافر کو کہاں ملتی ہے. صلوات پر محمد و آل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum. Let's begin with a recitation of a loud salawat. I'm just going to ask if everybody can move up a little bit closer, especially the youth on the side, just so we don't leave any empty space here, and then the people who come later, they have enough space to sit. You guys, can we? Come up. Thank you so much. Loud salawat. brothers and sisters, we begin by giving our condolences to Bibi Fatima Zahra and the Imam of our time on the eve of Muharram. On behalf of IEC Husseini Chicago and all the Mu'mineen, we give our deepest condolences. The Majalis will start right after Namaz-e-Maghrib. Namaz-e-Maghrib will be at 8:30. Sheikh Muhammad Abbas Panju will be reciting the Majalis in this legacy hall till Sham-e-Ghariba Ashra. Also, there's another announcement that there is going to be an IEC Kids Muharram workshop for the ages of 4 to 7 years. No registration is required. And join them downstairs to learn the chain of events of Karbala. It's going to be happening from the 1st of Muharram to the 7th of Muharram. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today. We are very honored and privileged to have Sheikh Muhammad Abbas Panju from the United Kingdom, London, to accept our invitation. We have been waiting eagerly for him to recite in our community. He began his Hawza studies in Sham, Syria, and he's lectured across many countries across the world. And he's been in many documentaries on TV channels and programs. And currently, he went back for further Hawza studies in Najaf, Iraq, and he flew from Najaf, Iraq to recite the Majalis. Once again, we are very grateful for him to accept our invitation. Just for the youth to know, there will be a one-time session only for Q&A that will happen Sunday at 7 p.m. We will be announcing further details on the social media handles for the youth and the youth group. So there will be a one-time session for both the boys and girls that will happen Sunday 7 p.m. Before the Majalis. And without further ado, I'd like to request Sheikh Muhammad Abbas Panju to bless us by the recitation of the Majalis. Please recite a loud salawat.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين رب العالمين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. يا غريب الغرباء يا مظلوم كربلاء السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته. السلام على من الإجابة تحت قبته. السلام على ساكن كربلاء. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي. يا سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. صدق النبي وآمنا به. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. A second of your loudest salawat in honor of Maulana Sahib al-Amri wa Zaman. As we begin these majalis for the nights of Shahrul Muharram and the Azah of Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, let us take a moment to raise our hands in du'as and pray for the quick recovery of Brother Hassan Afzal Ja'fari, the father of Kamran Ja'fari. If we are able to raise our hands and recite for him 5 times Ayatul Shifa'ah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. عما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. 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 اللهم إنا نسألك بحق أهل بيت النبوة وبحق سيد الشهداء أبا عبد الله. By the sake of Abba Abdullah, may Allah Azza wa Jal grant shafa'ah in the fastest of time to the brother and to all mu'mineen and mu'minat who may not be in the best of health. By the sake of Sayyid al-Shuhada on these blessed nights, and with the barakat of allowed salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahibai, you will find that within the texts of the ziyarat that we recite, there are treasures of ma'rifah that are embedded within these words, through which we are able to understand and increase our level of ma'rifah when it comes to Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah alayhi salam. You find that by way of example within Ziyarat al-Waritha, you address the Ma'soom Imam, teaches you to address Imam al-Hussein by saying, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Nuhin Nabiyullah. Peace be upon you, the warith of Prophet Nuh. Now, linguistically speaking, we tend to translate the word warith as successor. And hence, the basic translation would be, peace be upon the successor of Nabi Nuh, Prophet Nuh. However, when you translate the word, or you try to understand the word warith from the Arabic verb waritha, you find that from an aqaid perspective, the accurate understanding of the word warith would be the one who has upheld the legacy of. And hence, when you say as-salamu, when you refer to Imam al-Hussein by saying as-salamu alayka ya waritha Nuhin Nabiyillah, ya'ni, peace be upon you, the one who upheld the legacy of Prophet Nuh. And you find that when the Ma'soom Imam teaches you to address Imam al-Hussein by saying, or by referring to him as the one who upheld the legacy of Nabi Nuh, you find that there are similarities between the prophethood of Nabi Nuh and the imamat of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And because of these similarities, the Imam teaches you to address Imam al-Hussein as being the one who upheld the legacy of Nabi Nuh. However, for the purpose of tonight's lecture, I wish to centralize and to focus on one aspect of the prophethood of Nabi Nuh and tie it in with Imam al-Hussein and as us, the lovers of Imam al-Hussein, on this opening night of the Aza of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And the particular point of concentration is the ark of Nabi Nuh, its relationship to Imam al-Hussein, and how it affects us. We begin this analysis with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You find that within all Abrahamic faiths and within all Abrahamic scriptures, regardless of their differences in versions and differences in the dates in which these scriptures were authored, you will find that these Abrahamic faiths are unanimous and agree on two basic things when it comes to the Nabuwah of Nabi Nuh. Number one is that he lived an extremely long life. And you find within the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, Nabi Nuh lived for 2,500 years, of which he spent 950 propagating the Risala of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and inviting man towards the message of Tawheed. And the second aspect of Nabi Nuh's Risala, which is agreed upon by all Abrahamic faiths, is the fact that he built this massive ark such that when the divine punishment of Allah fell upon mankind by way of a global storm, everyone perished except those who embarked upon the ark of Nabi Nuh. For indeed, the ark of Nuh was salvation for the believers. Now from this introduction, Ahibai, keep two key words in mind. the ark of Nabi Nuh. The ark, yani safina, the Arabic term for ark is safina. And number 2, salvation, which in Arabic means najat. If we understand this as an introduction, we come forward and we have a look at this narration narrated by Ubay bin Ka'ab on authority of Rasulullah Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Where Ubay bin Ka'ab narrates, I was sitting with Rasulullah, and in the room, Sayyid al-Shuhada Imam al-Hussein came inside, while Imam al-Hussein was still a young child. And you know, within our Aqidah, the Imam is an Imam, and the Imam is at the highest level of Kamal and perfection, despite the fact that the physical appearance of the Imam might be a child, but the Imam is ma'soom and above any other comparison to any other human being. For Ubay says, Imam al-Hussein came into the room, and Rasulullah addressed Imam al-Hussein by saying, Assalamu alayka ya zayn as-samawati wal-ardh. Rasulullah addresses Imam al-Hussein by saying to him, peace be upon you, O the one who is the beauty and the ornament of the heavens and the earth. Ubay, the companion, looked at Rasulullah and he said, Ya Rasulullah, can anyone else other than you be the ornament and the beauty of the heavens and the earth? So Rasulullah says to Ubay bin Ka'ab, and I shorten the narration to the main point. Everything from Rasulullah's word is central, but for the purpose of this lecture. Rasulullah says to Ubay that when I ascended up towards the heavens on the night of Mi'raj, and inshallah you all commemorate the event of Mi'raj, which is generally commemorated on the 27th of Shahr Rajab, even though Bain al-Qawsayn, between brackets, Rasulullah ascended up to the heaven on multiple times. There were multiple Mi'rajes, if you can say, that happened during the lifetime of Rasulullah. In either way, Rasulullah states that on the night that I ascended up towards the heavens in Mi'raj, I went through the first heaven, the second, the third, the fourth heavens, and the Anbiya prayed behind me, and the Anbiya attested to the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen. As I ascended up towards the heavens, there was a point where even Jibreel could not accompany Rasulullah any further. And you read about this in the Quran, فَكَانَ كَابَ كَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى. Towards this highest point of the proximity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah states, I saw that it was inscribed, رَأَيْتُ مَكْتُوبًا عَلَى يَمِينِ الْعَرْشِ. I saw an inscription on the right hand side of the arsh of Allah. إِنَّ الْحُسَيْنِ مِصْبَاحُ الْهُدَى وَسَفِينَةُ النَّجَاةِ. Indeed, indeed, Hussein is the lantern of guidance and the ark of salvation. Our point of discussion today is the second half of this hadith. Indeed, Hussein is the ark of salvation on the right of the arsh. And from here, if we understand this as our second introduction, muqaddimah, we come to understand that there is the ark, the safina of Nabi Nuh on one hand, and on the other hand you have the ark and the safina of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Abu Abdullah Imam al-Hussein. On one hand you have najat, salvation, through the ark of Nabi Nuh. And on the other hand, you have najat and you have salvation through the ark of Imam al-Hussein. And from here, I would like to draw a very quick parallel between the ark of Nabi Nuh and the ark of Imam al-Hussein. You find that when you come back to the hadith of Ahlul Bayt, that when Allah Azza wa Jal warned the nation and the people through Nabi Nuh of this global storm that would come by way of adab and eternal or divine punishment, Allah Azza wa Jal sent down Angel Jibreel to give particular instructions to Nabi Nuh on how to build the ark. Where you find that this ark was built of wood, and it had dimensions that were instructions that particularly came from God. In fact, if you return back to the books of hadith, you will find that the massive ark that Nabiullah Nuh built, it was 1800 feet in length, 1200 feet in breadth, and was close to 900 feet in depth. To give you an idea of how grand this ark of Nabiullah Nuh was, 1800 feet in length, if you were to research and look up the Titanic, which is perhaps a ship that everybody can almost relate to in terms of its grand size, the Titanic was close to 900 feet, give or take, in length. The ark of Nabiullah Nuh, 1800, twice the size of the Titanic just in the length. The breadth of the ark of Nabiullah Nuh, as we said, hundreds of feet, 900 feet. When you look at what was perhaps from the Titanic, was not more than a couple hundred. So almost double the size of this ship. And you find that these instructions came from Jibreel. For the ark of Nabi Nuh was an ark that was built with particular specifications that came from the Lord and was built by a man who represented the message of Tawheed on earth. And if you understand this physical structure of the ark, which became the ark of salvation of Nabiullah Nuh, you come and you have a look at the ark of Imam al-Hussein. Allah Azza wa Jal has inscribed on the arsh, as we said, Inna al-Hussein misbahul huda wa safinatun najat. Hussein is the ark of salvation, meaning that the imamat of Imam al-Hussein, the message of Imam al-Hussein, the principles of Imam al-Hussein, and upholding the commemoration in regards to the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein. Each and every one of these are elements of this grand ark of Imam al-Hussein. Yani, these majalis that we attend is an ark from the which provides salvation. The ark of Imam al-Hussein that provides salvation. This ma'tam that you perform in all its intensities is an ark that provides salvation for the ma'tamis. The recitation of Marthia and Nawha is an ark from the arks of Imam al-Hussein that provides salvation. Ziyara is an ark of salvation. Serving the Zawar and serving those who attend the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein is the ark of Imam al-Hussein. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This ark of Imam al-Hussein is not restricted to a physical structure as the ark of Nabi Nuh, but is much more grandeur, commemorating the Aza of Imam al-Hussein means embarking upon the ark of Imam al-Hussein. And you find, just like at that time, people got salvation by boarding the ark of Nabi Nuh. Me and you and the entire mankind seek salvation by embarking upon the ark of Imam al-Hussein, which is upholding the commemoration and the azah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And just like at that time, see, during the time of Nabi Nuh, there was a global tufan, a global storm, and everyone perished in that storm, except those who embarked upon that ark, upon that safina. And the same thing in this day and age, in today's day and age. In this global tufan of atheism, in this global tufan of superficialism and moral decay and animalism and depression and misguidance, there is no najat, there is no salvation except through Imam al-Hussein and his majalis of Imam al-Hussein and this azah of Imam al-Hussein. You notice throughout history, how many people have sought guidance through Imam al-Hussein. How many people who are not compliant with the deen end up becoming compliant because of this majalis and the azah and the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein. And it is for this reason you find that throughout history the tughat, the oppressors, have had a problem with the azah of Imam al-Hussein. Entum shufu, go back to history. These oppressors, they didn't have a problem with people reciting salat. They didn't have a problem with people fasting. They didn't have a problem with people going for hajj. They had a problem with people commemorating the azah of Imam al-Hussein because of the power that is invested in this azah. And you and I should understand the value of this farsh azah. Should understand the value of these majalis, which we are blessed to be attending on these nights. This safina and this ark of Imam al-Hussein is so grand. Hadith al-Sharif mentions, on authority of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Hadith al-Sharif in the text Kamil al-Ziyarat, which is authored by Alama ibn Kawlaway rahmatullah alayhi. One of the most authentic texts authored in regards to the fiqh of azadari. The fiqh of the azah of Imam al-Hussein ibn Kawlaway is buried in Kadhmain. Insha'Allah, you and I get the opportunity to perform the ziyarah of Imam al-Jawad and Imam al-Qadim, insha'Allah. Hatman, when you visit Kadhmain, at the doorstep, visit the grave of Ibn Kawlaway. He was also the teacher of Sheikh Mufid. We are indebted to Ibn Kawlaway. And if you do get a chance during these nights to read through the text Kamil Ziyarat, Hatman read. Understand the value and the grandeur of performing the azah and the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Ibn Kawlaway mentions in this hadith on authority of our sixth Imam, من ذكرنا عنده فدمعت عينيه أو ففاضت عينيه ولو بمقدار جناح الذباب غفر له ذنوبه. Anybody, hadith is hadith mutlaq, it is not muqayyad. Those of us who have studied within the texts of hadith and usul al-fiqh, this hadith is not restricted. This hadith is unrestricted. It is not restricted. Unrestricted. Mutlaq. Man dhukirna indahu. Whoever, when we are remembered, whoever remembers us, whoever yani mu'min, ghair mu'min, munafiq, sinner, believer, whoever remembers us and our tragedy, and as a result of this, his eyes tear up. Hadith says, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, if the tear was even the size of the wing of the fly, غُفِرَ لَهُ ذُنُوبُهُ, his entire sins are forgiven. This is Imam al-Hussein. This is the ark of Imam al-Hussein. No matter what sins I have committed throughout the year, no matter how uncompliant I am in my deen, no matter what troubles I have in my life, this ark of Imam al-Hussein is so vast, and this Mawla is so Kareem, that he embraces anyone who sheds a tear for him. And this tear that you shed, Ahibai, is something very precious. This tear, you know, when you shed a tear and you begin to cry, as this tear begins to foam and drips down your eye, it extracts the most purest aspect of your being that is embedded at the bottom of your heart. On top of all this rust of sin and uncompliance and greed and lust and whatnot. But when you cry with this tear, the most purest part of you begins to surface within your heart. And the purest aspect of spirituality that you will ever feel in your life is when you have wept and shed a tear for Imam al-Hussein. Entum shufu, try over these next 10 to 12 nights. When you weep for Imam al-Hussein and you feel that tear streaming down your face, monitor the level of purity that you feel inside of yourself. And it is the power of this tear that will then prove to be the most powerful force within you that will allow you to change for the better in your life. There is no other powerful factor, no other factor in your life more powerful than the tear shed for Imam al-Hussein that can propel you towards change. We don't say that the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein gives people hope. We say it gives them salvation and success, something much greater than hope. The power of this tear is such. Maulana Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq Ruhi Lahul Fida, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal faraja, states, لو أن قطرة منها, to paraphrase, سقطت على الجهنم, سقطت على جهنم لأطفأت حرها. You know the value of this tear? Imam al-Sadiq Ruhi Lahul Fida states, Sadiq al-Muhammad states that this single tear, if it was to fall onto the flames of Jahannam. And what is this Jahannam? This fire that has been created from the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقُودُهَا النَّاسِ وَالْحِجَارَةِ, it says within the Quran. A fire that the human mind cannot comprehend. A fire, the Quran says, whose fuel is men and stones. You can comprehend this heat. A fire that is created from the anger and the wrath of Allah. Imam al-Sadiq says, this raging fire of Jahannam, if a single tear that is shed in the way of Imam al-Hussein was to fall into this raging flames of Jahannam, this one tear is enough to extinguish the entire Jahannam. This is the power, Ahibai, that you possess within you because of the grace of Imam al-Hussein. This is the Safina and the Ark of Abu Abdullah that saves us from hellfire and takes us towards najat and salvation. And from here, you are able to understand that there is a stark difference. There is a massive difference between the ark of Imam al-Hussein and the ark of Nabiullah Nuh. In the sense that in order for you to embark the ark of Nabi Nuh, you had to be a believer in the message of Nabi Nuh. But when it comes to the ark of Imam al-Hussein, this ark of Sayyid al-Shuhada is open for anyone and everyone to embark, sinner or compliant. In fact, this ark is open for sinners like myself. And it is this ark that gives us hidayah. Let me narrate for you an incident that took place with a person by the name of Jamaluddin Ali bin Abdul Aziz al-Khulay'i. Back in the day, it is narrated about 580 AH, give or take 1,000 years ago. There was a Nasibi family, Wahhabi, haters, enemies of Ali Muhammad, haters of Amirul Mu'mineen. And they were living in Mosul, Iraq. This husband and wife, both of them had shadid, yani bughd, ajib wa gharib for Amirul Mu'mineen. Had a strange hatred for Amirul Mu'mineen. And at the same time, they never had children. The couple was barren. So the mother did another. The mother did another. She said, Ya Allah, if you bless me with a son, I will raise this son on the hatred of on the hatred of Imam Ali, Amirul Mu'mineen. I will raise this son and I will teach him to hate Ali Muhammad. In fact, I will raise a son who will kill the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein. Nasibi. Allah Azza wa Jal, Hakim, divine, ala kulli shay'in qadir. And from His divine hikmah, Allah Azza wa Jal granted this couple with a child. The woman nourished the child, and as the child grew, she fed him with the hate of Ali Muhammad, until the child became a young adult. And the mother said, it is now time for me to fulfill my nadhr. So she sat her son down and she says, oh son, I asked Allah to bless me with a child like yourself. And I made a pledge to God, I made a covenant that when you grow up, you will kill the Zawar of Imam al-Hussein. Shufu nadhar, ajib wa gharib. This son was brainwashed with this propaganda and this hatred of Ali Muhammad. He said within himself, yes mother, I shall do this. And so he set off at that time, and he set off particularly to target the Shi'as of Ali Muhammad and the lovers of Imam al-Hussein from Jabal Amil in Lebanon, present-day Lebanon. And so it is written in his biography that he left his home towards the area of Mosul, and he decided to plant himself in the main road in which the kafilah of the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein would pass, such that the first kafilah that passed, he would behead everyone who was going for the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein because of his hatred. Kufad, can you find somebody who is a greater Nasibi than this? peak of nasibi, peak of nisb. Sahilola. As this person set out for this task, he was waiting for this kafil of the Zuwar to come. And as he was waiting, he fell asleep on the side of the road. He fell asleep. And this kafil of the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein began passing. They passed him while he was asleep. And as you know, those of you who have been blessed to go for the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, those of you who have been blessed to walk to Imam al-Hussein on Arba'een, you know how dusty it gets inside of Iraq. As he was sleeping and the kafila of the Zuwar passed, the dust of the kafila blew over this Nasibi's face, beard and body. In his dream, this Nasibi, in his dream, he saw that it is the day of judgment. Yawmul Qiyamah. And Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded in front of the Mizan, because he is from the haters of Ali Muhammad. They know that anyone who has hatred towards Ali Muhammad can never enter Jannah, enter Jannah, can never smell the fragrance of Jannah. Is commanded, إِلَى الْجَهَنَّمْ وَبِئْسَ الْمَسِيرِ. And this person was terrified, Jamaluddin. He was terrified. He's going to Jahannam. He sees in his dream the Mizan, and the angels are taking him towards Jahannam. And as they were taking him towards the fire of hell, when they tried to throw him in, the fire of hell would not touch him. Ajib. What happened? The Malaika of Jahannam say that the fire of Jahannam cannot burn this person because the dust of the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein is on his body. This Jamaluddin woke up terrified from his dream. But the hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Imam al-Hussein comes in ways that is ajib and gharib. Jamaluddin, when he saw this, he was so taken back by the power of the dust of the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein. He looked towards Karbala. He sought forgiveness from Imam al-Hussein and from Allah. And he developed within himself this ajib, intense love for Imam al-Hussein and for Sayyid al-Shuhada. He went on to compose one of the most powerful and eloquent poetry in the way of Imam al-Hussein. Till today, 580 AD, he passed away. For over 1,000 years, he ended up becoming one of the most famous poets, shu'ara, from the poets in the way of Imam al-Hussein. He went on to live in Karbala and went on to serve the Zuwar of Imam al-Hussein and perform tabligh in the way of Imam al-Hussein. One of his most famous poems that he wrote or that he composed. This is after seeing the dream when he first went to Karbala. He says in his poetry, إِذَا شِئْتَ النَّجَاةَ فَزُرْ حُسَيْنًا تَلْكَ الْإِلَهِ قَرِيرَ الْعَيْنِ. If you wish success, then perform the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. You will meet your Lord in the best of ways. إن النار ليس تمس الجسم عليه غبار زوار الحسين. The fire of hell shall never burn a body upon which is the dust of Imam al-Hussein. This is the ark of Abu Abdullah. Even Nawasib have gained the hidayah through Imam al-Hussein. For on these nights of Azaa, Ahibba'i, do not judge anyone. Person is compliant, not compliant, wears hijab, doesn't wear hijab. Ahibba'i, the doors of Imam al-Hussein and the Safina of Imam al-Hussein is open for everyone and anyone to come, because hidayah is from Allah and from Sayyid al-Shuhada. And if a person doesn't believe, doesn't reform today, maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the day after. If not at the point of death, perhaps. It is this Majalis Imam al-Hussein that shall provide salvation to him. For the Majalis and this ark of Imam al-Hussein, upholding the Azaa of Imam al-Hussein, Ahibba'i, does not only provide salvation for the sinners, does not only guarantee you the forgiveness of your sins. La, this ark of Imam al-Hussein is such an ark that apart from forgiveness, you yourself can become the source of forgiveness for others. Ajib wa gharib. Hadith al-Sharif again in Kamil al-Ziyarat, Maulana Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, Ruhi lahu al-Fida. He states in the Hadith, Za'irul Hussein mushaffi'un limit rajul wajabat alayhimun nar. The Za'ir of Imam al-Hussein, the one who performs the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, will perform one because of the karama of Imam al-Hussein, because of the izzah of Imam al-Hussein, gets to perform shafa'ah for 100 people. This ark of Imam al-Hussein does not only provide you with salvation, it makes you the source of other people's salvation. And within this is something azim. For Ahibba'i, on these nights, as we enter these nights of Azaa, exert all your effort in upholding the majalis, in upholding the matter, the nawha and the marthia and the weeping for Imam al-Hussein, because this is where our salvation lies. And within these nights, seek inspiration to visit Imam al-Hussein and the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. Pledge within yourself, this arba'een, that you will visit Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah. And you see how these doors of rahmah open up for you in the dunya before the akhirah. Do not take these nights of Azaa lightly. There is nothing like a small night and a big night. Our destiny begins from the first night of Shahr Muharram. As you know, on a night like this, the first night of Muharram, the angels are in a state of Azaa. The heavens are draped in black. Tadrun, it says within the hadith, إذا حل or إذا حل حلال محرم, إذا حل حلال محرم. When the eve of Muharram sets in and the moon is sighted, the malaika fly through the heavens and through the skies of this dunya with the shirt of Imam al-Hussein. And the hadith says this shirt of Sayyid al-Shuhada, this qamis, this shirt of Sayyid al-Shuhada is covered in the blood of Imam al-Hussein. And as this shirt is taken through the heavens, the angels fall into Azaa. Which is why, when you find yourself on a night like this, you find that your heart has become soft and you just begin weeping for Imam al-Hussein. This is because of the effect of that qamis that has been taken through the heavens. And the hadith goes on to mention that the first person to weep when seeing this shirt of Sayyid al-Shuhada covered in blood is none other than Mawlati Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. This relationship between Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen and Imam al-Hussein, I will mention for you in the coming nights. But it is imperative, and our elders in the Hawza teach us, that the first nights of Muharram begin with the Aza of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. Because all the dhulm that happened on Imam al-Hussein began with that dhulm that began on Sayyidah Fatima, that happened on Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. الذين أسسوا أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت happened when the door of Sayyidah Zahra was burnt. For if you weep on the burning tents of Sayyidah Zainab and Shama Ghariban, it begins with the burning door of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. Allah, Allah. Ahibai, lovers of Imam al-Hussein, I want to take you back to Medina on the martyrdom of Rasulullah. The narrations mention that very few people recited Salat al-Mayyit on Rasulullah. The people of Saqifa elected a leader amongst themselves, and Amirul Mu'mineen was in the house with people from the Ahlul Bayt. They had refused to give the bay'ah. So the Jibt said to the Taghut, the first Dhalim said to the second Dhalim, let us get bay'ah from Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, because this Khilafah means nothing without the bay'ah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So he said, who should we send? The second Taghut said, send Kunfudh to the house of Sayyidah Fatima. فَإِنَّهُ فِضٌّ غَلِيدٌ رَجُلٌ فَضٌّ غَلِيدٌ. He's a person who is the most hardest, the one who has the least akhlaq, the one who is the most staunchest and the most violent person. Send him to the house of Fatima. The narrations mention Kunfudh came the first time to the door of Sayyidah Fatima and the Amir, and he cried out and he said, "Oh Ali ibn Abi Talib, come out and give the bay'ah. Amirul Mu'mineen is asking for you to give bay'ah." Imam Ali replied from behind the door, "This title, Amirul Mu'mineen, belongs to no one but myself. I shall not give the bay'ah." Twice Amirul Mu'mineen refused to give the bay'ah. The third time, Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra came behind the door and she said, "Why do you come to our house?" Kunfudh says, "I have been given commands that if Ali does not give the bay'ah, I will break into the house." Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen says, "I forbid you to enter my house." This is Fatima. Inna Allah yarda li ridati Fatima wa yaghdab li ghadabiha. Kunfudh went back and he says, Fatima came behind the door and she has refused us entry. At this time, Umar said, "Ma lana wa lin nisa." What do we have to do with the women? And the Jibril said to him, "I'tini bi Ali ibn Abi Talib bi a'naf al-unf." Bring Ali to me in the most violent of manners and seek the bay'ah. Wa in aba faqtulhum. They said, and if he refuses to give the bay'ah, then kill him. It is narrated by Ubay ibn Ka'ab that Umar ibn Khattab together with 300 of the munafiqeen went to the door of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. They shouted out, "Oh Ali, come out and give the bay'ah." The narrations mention Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra came behind the door. Allah, she was heavily pregnant with Sayyid Mohsin. She had a bandage around her head because of the weakness. She said from behind the door, "Oh people, what do you want from us?" He cried out, "Why does Ali send you while he's seated behind in the house?" Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra said, "Tughyanuka ya shaqi," your evilness, O person, your evil behavior has forced me to come here. Wa ulzimuka al-hujjah, I am a hujjah upon you in front of Allah. He said, "Tell Ali to come out and give the bay'ah." She said, "Do you not fear Allah?" The man says, "Oh Fatima, Allah will not send down the angels anymore, and Muhammad is no more, so stop these vain talks." Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra said, "I shall complain to Allah about your behavior." On this point, they lit the door of Fatima on fire. The narrations mention the smokes encompassed the entire house. Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra behind the door, he kicked open the door. The narration says Fatima got crushed between the door and the wall. Allah, Allah. When she got crushed between the door and the wall, she cried out in the most painful voices, "Ya Abata, Ya Rasulallah." If you can imagine the pain in the voice of Sayyidah Fatima, the narrations mention, Ibn Khattab says, "When I heard the pain in the voice of Fatima, I was about to turn back, but then I remembered my hatred for Ali ibn Abi Talib and how he killed the Arabs in the battles of Badr and Uhud and Hunayn, and out of this hatred I turned back." He says that I kicked the door for a second time with all my power. Allah, Allah. The second time he kicked the door, Fatima's rib got crushed. The narrations mentions, "Ya Shi'at Fatima." I don't know if you can hear this. My apologies to the Sadat. But Salman says there was a nail that was protruding from the door and it pierced the lungs of Sayyidah Fatima. Allah, Allah, the zulm of Karbala began with Fatima. The narration mentions that he came inside. If you can hear this, Sadam, Ya Shi'at Fatima, if you can hear what he did, the narrations mention that Taghut slapped Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. He slapped her in such a manner that her earring broke and her eye became swollen. The eye was swollen to such an extent. The eye was swollen to such an extent that when Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra became Shahida, the Maktal doesn't say when a person dies they close both their eyes. But when Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra passed, the Maktal says she closed only one eye because the other eye was swollen from the... Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Matame Hussein, Matame Fatima.
اونچا رہے اپنا علم، کب تک ہے دور آسماں، کب تک ہے دور آسماں، سن لے یہ ہر پیر و جوان، آواز پر شبیر کی بڑھتا رہے، یہ کارواں رکنے نہ پائے، یہ قدم اونچا رہے اپنا، اونچا رہے اپنا، ہر قلب پر چھاتے چلو، ہر قلب پر چھاتے چلو، دنیا کو بتلاتے چلو، دنیا کو بتلاتے چلو، ایک ایک محاذ ظلم کی تصویر دکھلاتے چلو، ہر دل میں بھر دو شہ کا غم، اونچا رہے اپنا، اونچا رہے اپنا، کب تک نہ مانے گا کوئی، کب تک نہ مانے گا، وہ وقت آئے گا کبھی، وہ وقت آئے گا کبھی، ہر قلب پر چھا جائے گا اپنا حسین ابن علی، اس در پہ ہر سر ہوگا خم، اونچا رہے اپنا، اونچا رہے اپنا، عباس ہے نام وفا، عباس ہے نام وفا، آغاز و انجام وفا، آغاز و انجام وفا، منہ موڑ کے دریا سے جو پیتا رہا جام وفا، ہوتے رہے بازو قلم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا، جب کربلا یاد آئے گی، جب کربلا یاد آئے گی، انسانیت شرم آئے گی، مظلوم کی آواز ہے دل میں اترتی جائے گی، پلٹیں گے پھر بہ کے قدم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، 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 جب سامنے آتا ہے، جب سامنے آتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، ہم صورت زہرا سے بھائی کے بچھڑنے کی، خاتون قیامت سے گھر بار اجڑنے کی، گھر بار اجڑنے کی، روداد سناتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، کاٹا ہے گلا لوگوں سحر روز کے پیاسے کا، پامال ہوا لاشا احمد کے نواسے کا، احمد کے نواسے کا، ہر ایک کو بتاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، تصویر دکھاتا ہے احمد کی جوانی کی، ہر شخص کو دنیا میں کربل کی کہانی کی، کربل کی کہانی کی تفسیر بتاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، جب سامنے آتا ہے، جب سامنے آتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا، صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم
پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان اللعین الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ السلام علیکہ یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا خاتم الانبیاء، السلام علیکہ یا مولانا امیر المؤمنین علی ابن ابی طالب ولی اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا مولاتی یا سیدت نساء العالمین فاطمة الزہراء، السلام علیکی یا ام المؤمنین سید خدیجة الکبریٰ، السلام علیک یا امام حسن المجتبی سید شباب اہل الجنہ، السلام علیک یا مولانا یا ابا عبداللہ الحسین المظلوم المقتول بأرض کربلا، السلام علیک وعلی الارواح التي حلت بفنائک، لا سیما مولانا قمر بنی ہاشم ابو الفضل العباس ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم یا سبایا اہل بیت النبوہ، لا سیما سیدہ زینب الکبریٰ علیہ السلام، السلام علیکم یا ائمۃ السلام علیکم یا ائمۃ الہداة وولاة امر اللہ، امام علی بن الحسین زین العابدین و امام محمد بن علی باقر علوم النبیین و امام جعفر ابن محمد الصادق اصدق الصادقین و امام موسیٰ بن جعفر الکاظم حبیث الظالمین و امام علی ابن موسیٰ الرضا ناصر الدین و امام محمد بن علی الجواد شاب اہل البیت و امام علی بن محمد الحادی علم الہدى و امام حسن بن علی العسکری المظلوم فی حیاتی و بعد موته، السلام عليك يا مولانا القائم الحجة المنتظر المهدي. السلام عليك يا صاحب الأمر والزمان. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في الأرض. اللهم عجل لولينا الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأشيائه ومن المستشهدين بين يديه. وبحقه اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا. وبحقه اللهم تقبل منا أعمالنا. وبحقه اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على
One announcement, the moon has been sighted, so tomorrow will be the first of Muharram. Thank you.